My interest payment is being drank through a straw in the Bahamas in someone's coconut.
Some people will have lost their lives over all this, and that is criminal. This will rock the mortgage will.
Imagine that you've done everything right. You've bought your dream home, a house for your family, and taken out a mortgage. But because of events beyond your control and decisions taken without your knowledge, by the government, by financial institutions, you face losing everything. That is the plight of hundreds of thousands of mortgage prisoners in Britain right now. This is the biggest mortgages scandal in our country's history, and it impacts around 200,000 households. All of them took out their mortgages before the 2008 global financial crisis, and they have been left unprotected. If you think that the kind of risky lending that caused the financial crisis only happened in America, think again. It happened here too, and this story is its legacy.
Some of the most recognisable banking names on the high street are now effectively under government control.
You know, there's more than a couple of times where I thought about why bother to carry on.
Mayhem, carnage, a bloodbath. Call it what you want, but what we saw on global stock markets today was ill-disguised panic.
Since 2008, politicians have had every opportunity to help mortgage prisoners, but they have chosen not to.
I'm Vicky Spratt, ICE housing correspondent, and for over a year now, I have been investigating the plight of mortgage prisoners. What I have uncovered suggests that many of them may have been treated unfairly by their lenders. If this is the case, it means that the terms of their loan may have been breached. And if they have, these people might be due compensation.
Meet Spencer Shackleton. He and his wife took out one of Northern Rock's notorious Together mortgages in 2005. He is currently being charged an interest rate of a whopping 8.19%. He tells me how much struggling with his mortgage has impacted him and his family.
It's hard. I am a strong character at times, but things get to you. And trying to be strong for a wife, my two kids, you know, that's the struggle, because we've got all these problems which I'm shouldering, which to some extent my children weren't aware of. So when it comes to things like, oh, why can't we go on holiday to America? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? Trying to explain without frightening them that, well, if we did that, we might lose the house. And then they've got that worry. So I carry that. You know, there's more than a couple of times where I thought about why bother to carry on. But it's my kids who stop me going over the edge. I've got, 6 years left on my mortgage before it runs out, and then they repossess the house. 6 years, it's almost like being told the day you're going to die. We seem to be forgotten, we seem to be just cast aside. Well, the government bailed out the banks, but they forgot about us. We didn't get bailed out. They sorted out the good bits, sold it all off, and we're the collateral damage behind.
You might be listening to Spencer's story and wondering, why doesn't he just take out a mortgage with another lender? Why doesn't he go on to a fixed rate mortgage? Well, here's the thing about mortgage prisoners. They can't do any of that. Why? There are several reasons. One is that many of their lenders, like Northern Rock, now Landmark Mortgages, do not have lending licenses. This means they cannot offer their customers new loans. And it's not as easy for Spencer as switching to another lender. Because he's been on such a high interest rate for so long, he has a poor credit history because he has missed payments. That means other lenders would be very unlikely to approve him for a mortgage. Spencer thought that his Northern Rock mortgage was now owned by a company called Landmark. I did some digging and revealed to him that it's not as simple as that. What happens in the 2010s is that Northern Rock Asset Management is sold off by the government, and it's bought by a private equity company based in America called Cerberus Capital. Have you ever heard of them?
Never heard of them.
Ever had any communication from them?
No.
Cerberus has a subsidiary company called Cerberus European Residential Holding, who are responsible for Landmark's mortgages. You ever heard of them?
Never heard of those either.
Cerberus European Residential Holdings are based in the Netherlands and the Cayman Islands.
That shocks me. Yeah, I didn't know anything about that. You know, my interest payment, instead of being paid onto my home to give me security, is being drank through a straw in the Bahamas in someone's coconut while they're picking up their retirement money, paid for by me.
A spokesperson for Landmark Mortgages stressed that Landmark is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. They also said that that means they are allowed to set variable rate mortgages. As for why their variable rate was so high, they said it was because of their business model and rates in the market. Landmark also said they provide a wide range of tailored support and guidance, including appropriate forbearance to help customers who find themselves in financial difficulty. Cerberus Capital did not respond to I's requests for comment.
One of the biggest problems that mortgage prisoners face is that they find themselves caught in a complex web of difficult financial and legal information. It can be overwhelming and almost impossible to unpack. I'm in Burnley to meet a lady called Alison Overson. In 2007, she took out a mortgage with a company called Southern Pacific Mortgages. Southern Pacific was back then an arm of Lehman Brothers, a bank in the US that famously played a crucial role in the global financial crisis.
Alison is currently on an 8.19% variable interest rate. Her repayments are coming in at over £2,500 a month. The charges on her account include over £50,000 from when Southern Pacific tried to repossess her home after she was made redundant several years ago. Alison tells me about the toll that this situation has taken on her.
I think sometimes it's quite soul destroying because you don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. I've had many, many sleepless nights. I think probably from 2011 until 2017, I probably didn't sleep much at all because not only was I, doing this and fighting this and trying to make money, but I had a full-time job, I've had a house to run. And since then, probably it's waned a little bit because I have a mum who has Alzheimer's that I also look after and I also still work. But in all transparency here, what the quite interesting fact for me is that all the charges that they've put on my house, because they charge me, which is, they're going to want back £458,000 and I only borrowed £350,000 because the £100,000 in charges is accruing every single day because they charge interest on that.
It was when she was in court fighting her repossession that Alison received a giant bundle of documents, which initially helped her trace who actually owns her mortgage. After taking out a loan with Southern Pacific in 2007, her mortgage was sold to a company called Eurosale. Eurosale still owns the interest on Alison's mortgage. Southern Pacific only has one employee. Eurosale appears to have none. Their only director is a company called Wilmington Trust SP Services. If you look at who actually owns Wilmington Trust, it is M&T Bank, based in America. But even with all this information, following all of these trails, it's impossible to find out where Alison's money and the money of other Southern Pacific customers actually ends up each month.
I approached Lee Brandon, Southern Pacific's only employee and their director. He initially provided a response which said Southern Pacific Mortgages Limited is an active company, a closed book lender, and never has been a trading name of Eurosale. I would like to confirm that I do not have any dealings with the Wilmington Trust, he added. I then went back to Mr. Brandon and pointed out that the sale documents shown to I by Alison suggest otherwise, and secondly, that the reputable credit ratings agency Fitch had reported on the sale of Southern Pacific mortgages to Eurosale. Mr. Brandon then revised his position. Lehman Brothers did sell the interest on loans to a number of special purpose vehicles such as various Eurosale entities, but did not sell the loans themselves, he said. Mr. Brandon added that this is standard practice for a lender wishing to raise finance to develop its business.
After we met in Burnley, Alison called me. She got a bit of a shock. She was, as she regularly does, looking on Southern Pacific Mortgages Limited's records on Companies House. She realised that the company had 2 new directors. They were also the directors of a new company that had been set up, Southern Pacific Holdings Limited. At the time we published our investigation, Southern Pacific Mortgages Limited's accounts were overdue, and it was unclear what involvement Southern Pacific Holdings Limited had in any of this. Alison told me she'd written to them and she could not get a straight answer. We asked them if they wanted to comment on what was going on. They didn't reply.
As for Eurosale, I contacted Wilmington Trust, who did not respond to my requests for comment. I then contacted their ultimate owner, M&T Bank in the United States. Patrick Fitzgibbons, M&T Bank's senior public relations manager, replied. He said that Wilmington Trust's role in this transaction is limited to providing administrative services. He said it would not be appropriate to comment on what the nature of those services were.
Platitudes are of little comfort to Alison, who is stuck with her mortgage and can't see a way out.
If I'm honest with you, the plight of some people is much worse than mine. Yes, and I see them, and there's people as well that I can honestly think that these people have taken to court and repossessed their homes and made them homeless, and some people will have lost their lives over all this, and that is criminal, and it's so sad in this society we live in today, I think.
The government knows about this. What would you say to them?
The government will know about this, because the government know about Northern Rock and what's happened there and all the things that are going on. But the government probably don't want another can of worms to open up here, because this will rock the mortgage world.
Okay, so by now, you've heard a lot of really complicated information, and you're probably wondering where the buck actually stops. That's a really good question, and the short answer is that nobody in Westminster wants to step in.
I've come to the Houses of Parliament to meet with Dominic Lindley. He's been campaigning on behalf of mortgage prisoners, working with members of the House of Lords and MPs for nearly a decade.
Well, we're in this situation because of the policies of the previous Conservative government. So when Northern Rock was nationalised, the government took over thousands of people's mortgages, and then from 2015 the Conservative government began to sell them off. But instead of introducing proper protections during the sale process, the government sold people's mortgages to vulture funds like Cerberus and inactive lenders. And that meant that many of these people were trapped, and that the vulture funds then charged them very high standard variable rates and refused to offer them new deals. And that really caused financial devastation to lots of families, but it also meant that there was absolutely no way for these mortgage prisoners to gain any certainty over their mortgage payments.
In 2016, you wrote to the government and warned them that the sale of Northern Rock could put former Northern Rock customers in a really difficult position. They knew about this.
Yes, the government were clearly warned, the Conservative government. They were told that many of these people were mortgage prisoners and they were trapped. and that meant that it was important that they introduced proper safeguards during the sales process.
And where is the regulator in all of this, Dominic? In this country, we have the Financial Conduct Authority. Surely this is their remit.
Well, the FCA has really been asleep at the wheel. It's allowed these mortgage prisoners to be mistreated by vulture funds, but also it's allowed these mortgage prisoners to be mistreated by branches of main high street banks. It's really a failure of the Conservative government and the regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, that this has been allowed to drag on for many years since the financial crisis.
The stories we've heard from mortgage prisoners across the country are devastating. People are suffering, their mental and physical health is deteriorating, and their financial health will be forever ruined. But who will help them? The new Labour government has a chance to fix this crisis. A spokesperson for Her Majesty's Treasury said, "This government recognises the challenges that mortgage borrowers who are unable to switch to a new mortgage deal face. That is why we will work with regulators and the industry to ensure the issue is properly addressed." But there has still been no announcement about what might happen to help these people who need support now. People like Spencer, like Alison, will struggle and suffer and face losing everything.
The Financial Conduct Authority would not confirm what oversight, if any, it has over closed book lenders like Southern Pacific Mortgages Limited and Landmark. However, a spokesperson said that they appreciate the difficult position that some borrowers in closed books find themselves in. They added that they will continue to support the government and industry as they consider any further potential options to help borrowers in closed books.